Our girl Han Ji Gottnip just stares blankly at him like she's lost in another world. This guy starts getting seriously weirded out because she's acting like a total zombie. He can't tell if she's just zoning out or if something is actually wrong with her today. He finally asks if she ate something weird because she is being way too quiet. Ji Gottnip stands there looking like the perfect student while she reflects on their history. This guy is always around, but today feels different for some reason. It all started way back at the Handal elementary entrance ceremony years ago. Even as kids, she was the bold one showing him a giant beetle while he just watched. She spent her childhood pulling books off the shelves and staying curious. Books were her escape, but soon she found a better way to spend her time. They sat on the floor of the library, together bonding over their taste in literature. Even science class was more interesting when they were learning about life together. One day, they just casually decided to start dating while sitting on a park bench. They became a power couple, winning every trophy and acing every single test together. Back in the present, he gives her a satisfaction rating of exactly 87 points. Ji Gottnip just takes it in stride, like she expected a numeric value for their relationship. They walk home together after school and then spend their nights studying side by side. Even at the movies, they are more like precious friends than a passionate couple. She looks at him, wondering if they are missing that spark everyone talks about. Ji Gottnip gets right in his face to see if he will finally have a reaction. Our boy starts blushing like crazy when she gets into his personal space. He gets so flustered that he has to hide his face and beg her to stop teasing him. She just flashes him a peace sign and acts totally innocent about the effect she has on him. He wonders out loud if simply being satisfied with how things are is actually enough for them. She looks at him intently while trying to figure out what is actually going on in his head. They pack up their bags to end another night of being the world's most platonic couple. Life for them is a cycle of walking home together and late-night study sessions. They represent the ultimate friend zone, even though they are technically dating. He admits that her logical way of looking at their stagnant relationship makes perfect sense. She suggests they should try to find that heart-pounding feeling by changing their environment. They decide it is time to stop standing still and finally move their relationship forward. They walk past the school gate together, planning their next move as a couple. She wants to go on a sudden weekday date right now without any delay. He looks a bit worried because he has no money and absolutely no plan ready. Our girl checks her phone while he panics about the lack of funds for this date. She seems totally unfazed by his worries about their empty wallets. She's got a plan brewing in that head of hers, and she won't take no for an answer. He gets a notification on his phone that changes the entire mood of their conversation. She checks her own phone and sees something that catches her eye immediately. He decides they should just go for it and head out right this second. They head out on their impromptu adventure, enjoying a quiet stroll away from the school building. They decide to kick off their budget-friendly date with a simple chocolate ice cream bar to share. She splits the snack in half and hands him his portion so they can both enjoy the treat. The two find a nearby park bench to sit down and relax while they finish their ice cream. He admits that even a totally random activity like this makes him feel incredibly happy. In a sudden burst of affection, he reaches over and pulls her into a warm embrace. The movie finally reaches its end, and they head out to continue their strange day together. They head off toward the park to see what else this unusual date has in store for them. They end up sharing a cheap chocolate split bar that only costs them 601. It's the simplest treat, but it feels special because they are sharing it. They sit on a park bench together, quietly munching on their melting ice cream. She points out how weird he's acting, because this is nothing like his usual personality. They sit there in the peaceful park, just enjoying each other's company for once. Suddenly, our boy leans in and grabs her in a tight hug from behind. He tells her he thought a sudden hug might finally cause those heart palpitations. Ji Gottnip is completely frozen as he holds her close against his chest. They sit there on the bench while the world around them just seems to stop. Her heart starts racing as she feels the intense physical reaction to his sudden affection. The ice cream is forgotten and melts all over the bench while they share this moment. Ji Gottnip walks into school the next day, her mind still buzzing from that intense moment on the bench. Our boy immediately notices something different and points out that she actually wore her hair down today. G. Gottnip decides to switch things up and lets her hair flow freely to see if it changes the vibe between them. She is hoping this subtle transformation will finally trigger that heart-pounding sensation they both need to move forward. They are both focused on finding that heart-pounding feeling that makes a relationship feel truly alive. It's April 2025, and as the school year progresses, their bond is clearly starting to enter new territory. They decide to go back to the basics and chase that heart-pounding feeling that first sparked during their emotional hug on the bench. Back in the classroom, G. Gottnip starts fidgeting with her hair while they talk at her desk. She explains that it's just way more comfortable for her to keep it tied up in a ponytail. The other students are just living their lives around them, totally oblivious to the sparks flying between these two. She is left completely speechless as she tries to figure out if he is actually being serious right now. He asks if he can practice tying it for her properly later on, which is a pretty bold move. Our girl is completely caught off guard by the suggestion and just stares at him in silence. He looks so determined about this, like mastering her ponytail is the most important mission he's ever had. They share a quiet moment in the middle of the classroom, while the rest of the world fades out. Finally, she tells him that she will be looking forward to seeing what he can actually do as soon as he gets a spare second. Our boy is glued to his phone watching hair tutorials online. He is sitting at his desk, taking this ponytail business incredibly seriously, scrolling through every video he can find. Man, he is even watching vlogs of other boyfriends tying hair just to make sure he doesn't mess up. Suddenly, a classmate named Seo Jaisu interrupts his secret study session and starts giving him a hard time. She sees him acting all suspicious with his phone and wants to know what he is hiding so badly. Jaisu is convinced that Arin wouldn't even care about his silly project, and while he surprisingly agrees with her, it doesn't change his determination to get this right for the girl he likes. She keeps lecturing him about his behavior while he tries to keep his secret research under wraps. Jaisu warns him that if he isn't careful, he might end up hurting her feelings in ways he doesn't realize. Our boy just slumps over his desk, feeling the weight of the secret and the pressure to get this right. He keeps his phone hidden under the desk, determined to master the art of the perfect ponytail for her. He really doesn't want either of them to get hurt and wants this gesture to be absolutely perfect. Unfortunately, the teacher catches him slacking off and demands that he follow him to the faculty office immediately. Every second spent getting scolded in the office feels like an eternity, when he knows he should be using this time to practice. Nature carries on at its own quiet pace outside, a sharp contrast to the stress he's feeling after getting caught with his phone. G. Gottnip watches the butterfly from her seat, her mind clearly wandering toward the boy who left the room. She checks the clock again, realizing that quite a bit of time has passed since he was taken away. The classroom starts to feel empty as the afternoon light shifts and students begin to head home. She waves a casual goodbye to some friends, but she is clearly waiting for someone specific to return. Now she is just sitting there all alone in the quiet room, the silence starting to feel heavy. G. Gottnip sits alone in the quiet classroom, staring at the empty seat where he should be. She starts to wonder where he could have gone and why he is taking so long. Her mind is racing with all sorts of questions as the sun begins to set. Suddenly, the classroom door swings open with a loud bang that startles her out of her thoughts. He bursts into the room looking totally exhausted and apologizes for getting held up by the teacher for so long. He is huffing and puffing from running back, and he looks like he went through a real ordeal. He looks at her blank expression and nervously asks if she is mad at him for making her wait so long. He sits down across from her, trying to catch his breath and calm his racing heart after that sprint. He tells her that thanks to the extra time, he actually managed to master the hair-tying technique completely. They sit together in the peaceful room, the warm afternoon sun spilling in through the glass windows. He looks at her with such sincerity that it makes the whole atmosphere between them feel heavy and charged. G. Gottnip just watches him, trying to figure out what is going on in that head of his. He gets the distinct impression that she is actually more angry at herself than she is at him. She keeps that cool and collected mask on, but her eyes tell a completely different story right now. Under the desk, their feet are so close together that they are practically touching as the tension builds. He turns around to face her, his heart starting to race as he gets a good look at her face. She notices his reaction and gives him a look that proves she knows exactly how much she affects him. He is totally flustered now, his profile glowing red as he tries to keep his composure in front of her. Even G. Gottnip starts to feel the heat, her cheeks turning a soft shade of pink as his sincerity finally starts to break through her walls. He stares right back at her, trying to summon the courage to say what is really on his mind. They are the only ones left in the classroom, and the quiet makes every little heartbeat feel incredibly loud. They have officially been dating for a year and 6 months now, yet they still find new ways to make each other's hearts race every single day. Outside the window, a pair of butterflies are dancing together, mirroring the feelings growing inside the room. He finally stands up and gets into position, ready to show her what he learned from all those videos. G. Gottnip gathers her purple hair up with her hands, trusting him to take care of her in this moment. He gazes at her with a soft look, realizing that these small, quiet moments are what their love is all about. G. Gottnip realizes that every single second she spends with her boyfriend is a memory she wants to cherish forever. She waits by the door, hoping to catch him off guard the moment he steps outside. The two of them start their morning walk to school, enjoying the quiet neighborhood streets. He gets a bit flustered by her sudden affection, trying his best to keep his composure. G. Gottnip can't help but feel a bit of anticipation as they head to class together. She begins to speculate if he's secretly cooking up a romantic surprise for her later in the day. She looks over at him, wondering if he has something special planned for their day together. She decides to take a chance and reaches right into his pocket to see what he's hiding from her. Without any warning, she reaches right into his pocket to see what he is hiding. He nearly jumps out of his skin, shocked by her sudden and bold move. She just laughs it off, telling him she was only checking if a gift was tucked away in there. They continue their stroll, but the air between them is thick with his nervous energy. She gives him a playful shove, laughing at how easily she can get a reaction out of him. The teasing quickly turns into a full-on race as the two of them start sprinting down the sidewalk. They finally reach the school building and burst through the door to their classroom. They stop dead in their tracks when they realize they are actually the only ones who arrived this early. They walk into the empty classroom and realize they are the only ones who showed up so far. He takes a look around the quiet room, still surprised they actually managed to beat everyone else to school. She points out that the best part of arriving so early is that they finally get to be alone together. She gives him a playful look, letting the silence of the room bring them a little closer. He remains silent and feels a bit flustered as her bold words settle in. Suddenly, G. Gottnip starts dragging her desk across the floor with a loud, screeching sound. He wonders why she is pushing the desks together, but she just says they should make the most of the empty room. She teases him by asking if he actually hates sitting next to his girlfriend, and he is quick to admit he loves it. He reaches into his bag and pulls out his wireless earbuds to help set the mood. He holds out one of the buds and asks if she wants to listen along with him. She happily takes the earbud and settles in, ready to hear what is on his playlist. She warns him not to go skipping through the songs on his own, now that they are sharing. She leans back and enjoys the music, feeling perfectly at peace in the quiet morning light. The two of them sit side by side in their own little world, enjoying the rare moment of quiet. She rests her chin on her hand and stares at him with a satisfied smile, looking completely smitten. He decides he needs a breather to clear his head and stands up to head out for a moment. He makes his way over to the restroom to splash some cold water on his face. As he looks at his reflection, he tries to calm his racing heart and regain his composure. He heads back toward the classroom, feeling a little more refreshed and ready to face her again. Seeing that he is still gone, G. Gottnip decides to have a little fun and closes her eyes to pretend she is fast asleep. He walks back into the room and stops in his tracks when he notices she has already drifted off. He quietly takes his seat next to her, careful not to make a sound and wake her up. He leans down on his own desk, bringing his face close to hers so he can get a better look. He finds himself completely mesmerized by her, unable to look away now that she isn't teasing him. She looks so soft and peaceful that he almost starts to believe she really is sleeping. The room is completely silent as they lay there together with only a few inches of space between them. He stays perfectly still, just enjoying the rare chance to be this close to her without any distractions. He feels a surge of affection for her, realizing that these quiet moments are becoming his favorite part of the day. Even though he knows he should probably look away, he can't help but admire every single detail of her face. His heart starts racing as he takes in every detail of her face while she's fast asleep right in front of him. He realizes just how much he's falling for her in this quiet and intimate moment. He is looking right at her face, enjoying the view from just a few inches away. He is thinking about how much he loves these small, quiet moments they share. Being this close to her makes his heart start thumping against his ribs like a drum. He is totally lost in her presence, wondering if she can hear how fast his pulse is racing right now. He just wants to stay like this forever, trapped in this perfect morning light with his favorite person. He starts to get a little closer, drawn in by her calm and steady breathing. The silence in the room is heavy with everything he wants to say but cannot find the words for. He feels a sudden wave of affection, realizing that even after all this time, she still has this effect on him. He reaches out a hand, almost touching her hair before he stops himself. Suddenly, G. Gottnip opens her eyes and catches him staring right into her soul. He jumps back in a total panic, his face turning a deep shade of crimson as he realizes he was caught. He tries to stammer out an excuse, but his voice fails him completely in the heat of the moment. She just watches him with a knowing smirk, clearly enjoying his total loss of composure. She lunges forward with lightning speed and grabs both of his wrists firmly. She pins him down against the desk, trapping him with her strength and her gaze. She tells him that staring at a sleeping girl like that is totally foul play on his part. G. Gottnip suddenly turns around and catches him red-handed, leaving him absolutely stunned by her quick reaction. She immediately goes on the offensive, calling him out for staring and making him stumble over his words. G. Gottnip leans in even further, her face just a hair away from his as she teases him. She asks him if this counts as the heart-fluttering surprise he was looking for today. He is completely at her mercy now, his heart beating so fast he thinks it might actually explode. G. Gottnip poked her head into the room only to find the one person she was really hoping to avoid. She hesitated by the door because the sheer weight of her father's presence was enough to freeze anyone in their tracks. He'd been terrified of this man since their high school days, and that old fear was starting to bubble up all over again. G. Gottnip kept her eyes fixed on the floor because she couldn't handle the intense stare coming from her dad. The old man is clearly ready to start an interrogation that no one is prepared to pass. Our guy started sweating through his hoodie as he realized that things were about to get very uncomfortable. They ended up settling down for a game of chess, which was really just a high-stakes mental battle. G. Gottnip sat right between them, feeling like she was caught in the middle of a brewing storm. Her father stared at the board with a level of focus that made every move feel like a life or death decision. Our boy remembered how G. Gottnip's house had always been governed by these incredibly strict and old-school rules. Even when they were younger, every single meal felt like a test, where you had to be on your best behavior. Her father always carried this terrifying aura that made the entire room feel like it was under a microscope. Our boy nearly jumped out of his skin when the silence was finally broken by a sharp question. The dad scolded him for slouching and told him that poor posture would make him lose all his energy. He immediately straightened his back and tried to look as respectful as he possibly could under that pressure. Then the old man mentioned that he hadn't seen much of him lately, which felt like a pointed accusation. He tried to explain away his absence by mentioning that his job had finally hit its busiest time of the year. He awkwardly added that he only really manages to get away and visit her family once in a blue moon. Every move on that board was accompanied by a loud click that echoed through the silent apartment. The dad actually let out a tiny smirk, which was somehow more unsettling than when he was looking angry. He looked him straight in the eyes and asked why he was acting so weird and formal all of a sudden. Our boy realized that he couldn't keep living in fear, and that it was finally time to be honest. He dropped down onto his knees in a formal declaration of respect that caught both of them totally off guard. He clenched his fists tight against his legs as he gathered every ounce of courage he had left. Her father looked down at him with an expression that was a mix of confusion and deep suspicion. The game was completely forgotten now, as the tension in the room reached an absolute breaking point. He demanded to know what was going on with him, and why he was making such a big deal out of nothing. Our boy took a deep breath and looked over at Erin, knowing he was about to change everything for them. He wanted to be the one to say it, instead of getting caught later and making things even worse. Her father caught her making a face and warned Erin not to start pouting while they were in the middle of a serious conversation. The silence stretched on so long that you could practically hear the gears turning in her father's head. Finally, the old man cleared his throat and made them both jump as they waited for his reaction. Instead of exploding, he just asked what they wanted to eat for dinner, as if nothing had happened. Our boy was stunned, while G. Gottnip quickly jumped in to say she wanted her favorite chicken order. As soon as her dad left the room, our boy collapsed forward onto the carpet in total exhaustion. He was still shaking from the adrenaline, while G. Gottnip sat there trying to process their narrow escape. She admits that her dad is absolutely terrifying and warns him that he shouldn't have pushed his luck. Our boy looked up at her, feeling a little bit bolder now that the immediate danger had passed. He started scooting closer to her again, wanting to finish what they started before the interruption. He leaned right in until they were face to face again, ignoring the fact that her dad was still in the house. They completely forget about the game they were playing as they get swept up in the moment together. That was a huge mistake, because her dad suddenly reappeared in the doorway, looking absolutely livid. Our boy turned his head, and his entire face went pale as he realized they had been caught red-handed. The dad was practically glowing with rage as he stared down at the two of them on the floor together. The cozy atmosphere vanished instantly as the old man loomed over them, ready to bring down the hammer. One of the pieces finally tumbled off the board as the situation turned into an absolute disaster. Everything is going great until her dad suddenly bursts into the room and catches the two of them way too close for comfort. This is the ultimate nightmare scenario for our boy, who was definitely not prepared for a surprise inspection. He's absolutely paralyzed with fear, breaking into a cold sweat as he realizes he's in deep trouble. The old man stares them down with a terrifying intensity that freezes the air. Dad stands there like an absolute final boss, demanding to know exactly what they think they are doing on the living room floor. The tension in the room is so thick you could cut it with a knife as he waits for an explanation. Our boy starts stuttering, trying to find some kind of excuse for the situation. He starts thinking about his unfulfilled dreams, realizing he's not ready for his life to end just yet. Dad suddenly starts lecturing about how a man's posture defines his habits and character. He commands the boy to sit up straight and act with some dignity. He nervously glances over at Erin, looking for any hint of how they're going to survive this. Dad turns his gaze toward his daughter, looking even more suspicious than before. Erin remains totally unfazed, staring back with a blank expression that only makes her dad more frustrated. Dad is practically vibrating with rage, asking if they were really about to kiss right under his nose. Our boy feels like his soul is literally departing from his body as the situation gets worse by the second. Erin finally reaches her breaking point and decides to stand up and face her father's wrath head-on. She stands tall and prepares herself for the lecture of a lifetime, knowing there's no way out of this one. Dad tells her that he didn't raise her to have such poor judgment of character. He warns her to stop pulling pranks before they blow up in her face. Our boy is losing his mind and begs her to stop playing around before things get even worse with her father. He can't believe how nonchalant she's being while he is practically fighting for his life in this interrogation. She stays completely unfazed, acting as if her father didn't just walk out in a total rage. He asks her what that was all about, but she just stays quiet. She pulls out a chocolate popsicle, proving her priority is still just snacks. Now they are both kneeling, properly eating ice cream, under Dad's watchful eye. He is completely baffled by her behavior, wondering if she even realizes how much trouble they are actually in right now. Dad sits across from them, looking deep in thought while he monitors them. He starts thinking about how people change, even if you try to stop it. He reflects on his own past remembering, when he was just a student himself. Han Ji-Gotnip keeps munching on her ice cream, completely tuned out of the heavy mood. Dad remembers a girl from his youth, who clearly meant a lot to him. He glances up at the wedding photo on the wall, thinking about his life. Our boy is still on edge, waiting for the next hammer to drop. Dad tells him he's heading out, and to just give him a call when he's ready to be picked up. Our girl whispers that things actually worked out pretty well in the end. A sleek white car pulls out onto the road, heading toward the boys' house. The ride is suffocatingly silent, as Dad takes the wheel with a grim look. He awkwardly agrees that it has probably been a long time since they all met up like this. He explains that his school rankings haven't really changed much since his middle school days. He mentions that it doesn't feel real that they are high schoolers already. Our boy listens, intently not wanting to say anything that might offend him. Dad casually mentions that he noticed she was leaving with her hair down today. He seems to be fishing for info, watching the boy out of his periphery. Our boy starts to panic again, wondering if the old man knows something. Cold sweat starts pouring down his face as the conversation gets more dangerous. The old man suddenly gets serious and asks him if he has any idea what's been going on. He is absolutely terrified, feeling like any word he speaks could be his last. He starts sweating buckets as he realizes there is no way out of this interrogation. It is late in the afternoon, and the heat outside is still pretty intense. Dad lets out a heavy sigh and admits that the boy might actually have a point. He turns his attention back to the road, but he still has a few lingering suspicions. Our boy tries his best to keep it together, but he is starting to break out in a cold sweat. He feels like he is under a microscope and starts shaking like a leaf under the old man's gaze. Dad decides to drop one last lecture, reminding him that a man is defined by his posture. The boy immediately snaps his back straight, sitting as stiffly as a board to keep the peace. They eventually pull up to a red light, where the silence starts to feel like an eternity. Trapped in the car, he silently begs for Arin to come and save him from this nightmare of a ride. Meanwhile, our girl is back at home, lounging on her bed without a single care in the world. She finally has some space to breathe, but her dad is still lurking in the hallway to make sure she stays out of trouble. Once she is finally left alone, she just swings her feet and thinks about her boy, replaying their whole encounter in her head. He heads to the local C-Mart to clear his head, still replaying every single moment in his mind. Our boy is already there, wandering the aisles, trying to focus on his grocery list instead of his racing heart. He picks up some tofu and a carton of eggs, checking his basket to see if he's missing any other dinner essentials. Suddenly, Ji-Gotnip sneaks up behind him and taps his shoulder, catching him completely off guard in the quiet store. He nearly jumps out of his skin, spinning around with a look of pure panic because he definitely did not hear her coming. He stares at her like he just saw a ghost, totally stunned that she tracked him down in the middle of his shopping trip. Our girl just stands there with her hands up, giving him this innocent look like she did not just scare the life out of him. He checks the time and realizes it's almost 7, which only adds to the stress of this unexpected and very public encounter. Fast forward a few hours, and they are already deep into a late-night dalgona, making session in the kitchen together. Our boy is stuffing a cat-shaped piece of candy into his mouth, looking absolutely drained by her high energy and chaotic vibes. Ji-Gotnip walks in drying her hair and casually mentions how neither of them has changed sizes in 2 years, which immediately makes the tension in the room skyrocket. She gives him a soft and thoughtful look from the side that makes his heart skip a beat all over again. He suddenly loses his balance and ends up falling backward onto a display bed. Back at the store earlier, Things had actually gotten pretty wild when he ended up falling backward onto a display bed. The commotion catches everyone's attention, and soon the entire store is staring at the pair with total confusion. Some nearby customers start staring and whispering, clearly thinking they are watching some kind of intense public drama unfold in front of them. They manage to get back on their feet and start wandering through the aisles, feeling the weight of the awkward silence after that public disaster. He tries to play it cool, but he can't stop thinking about how close they just were. They try to shake off the embarrassment by making small talk, acting like their hearts aren't racing a mile a minute. G. Gottnip gets a bit serious, probably wondering if he is actually as calm as he looks. She mentions that her dad once warned her about playing with fire, and the timing of that advice couldn't be more awkward. He is visibly flustered and sweating a bit as he tries to act like he isn't totally obsessed with her presence. Her heart starts thumping so loud, she is worried he might actually hear it. Even as they head for the exit, the tension between them is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Once they get home, she immediately fires up the stove to get their little cooking date started. She reveals her secret weapon for the night, a Dalgona-making kit with a cute cat mascot on the front. She is determined to show off her skills and prove she knows exactly what she is doing. She insists on handling the stove herself, claiming the kitchen is too small for both of them to be hovering over the heat. She manages to pull it off, presenting a perfectly shaped cat Dalgona that looks almost too good to eat. G. Gottnip stays completely locked in and even offers to let him in on her secret cooking technique. She's determined to prove she can handle the heat and shows off her newfound confidence while mastering the stove. She gets right to work melting the sugar and carefully pouring it out to form the perfect base for her treats. After a few tries, she finally masters the shape and finishes her first successful cat-shaped Dalgona. Her surprise tip is to just lick the back of the sugar to melt the pattern, which she demonstrates without hesitation. Our boy is absolutely mortified by the suggestion, looking like his soul just left his body after hearing her weird advice. He stares at her in stunned silence, wondering if she is actually serious or just trying to mess with his head. G. Gottnip turns around to reach for something in the cabinet, trying to find a cup for their drinks after all that sugar. She stretches as high as she can, but she still can't quite reach the top shelf where the cups are stored. Suddenly, a cup slips from the shelf and falls right onto her head, catching her completely by surprise and making her shout. A massive cloud of white powder erupts everywhere, covering the entire kitchen and our girl in a thick white mess. He stands there in total shock, trying to process how she managed to turn a simple snack into a complete kitchen disaster. Even though they are both covered in powder, he realizes this cooking session was a lot more fun than he expected. After they finally cleaned up that massive kitchen mess, they decided to head out to the cinema. Our boy and Han G. Gottnip walk out of the theater with their popcorn and drinks in hand. They start chatting about the movie, and G. Gottnip mentions how sad it was even though she knew what happened. They walk past a movie poster, and our girl wonders out loud if the film is actually doing well. He keeps his eyes on her as they navigate the lobby, captivated by how effortless she looks even in a crowd. Our girl has that classic blank expression on her face, but you know she's thinking about something. Suddenly, a girl with bright pink hair and a bubbly attitude appears right in front of them. She's acting all energetic and excited, which is the total opposite of our girl's calm vibe. G. Gottnip just stands there, watching this high-energy girl ramble on like she's got unlimited batteries. A spilled drink creates a sticky mess on the floor during the most intense part of the movie. The pink-haired girl completely loses it, sobbing into a tissue as the movie gets way too emotional for her to handle. Her loud sobbing starts to fill the entire theater, drawing annoyed glances from everyone sitting nearby. G. Gottnip tries to ignore the constant noise by focusing on her popcorn, but she's clearly reaching her breaking point. Eventually, Han G. Gottnip had enough of the distractions and decided she was better off leaving. The boy sitting next to the pink-haired girl looks totally shocked as he watches our girl walk away. G. Gottnip doesn't even bother looking back. She just wants to get away from the theater drama. She marches straight for the exit, leaving the three of them sitting there in the dark. G. Gottnip makes her exit without looking back, leaving the guys completely baffled in their seats. One of them even tries to wave her down, but she is way past caring about their reactions. She's officially out of there, ready to put this weird group outing behind her for the night. Pinky is clearly mortified after her outburst made things incredibly awkward for the whole group. She looks down at the ground, clearly feeling guilty for ruining the mood for everyone else. The boy with her tells our boy that he needs to go after her right this second. Our boy just gives him a knowing look and tells him to just thank him later. G. Gottnip waits out in the lobby, likely regretting she even agreed to come out for this movie in the first place. She's waiting near the entrance, looking as cool and composed as ever despite the awkward theater moment. Our boy finally catches up to her, probably relieved to be out of that theater room too. Our boy manages to track her down, looking pretty relieved to finally be away from the drama in the theater. He keeps his usual nonchalant expression, acting like the total meltdown back there didn't faze him at all. He waves her over with a casual smile, ready to finally get some peace and quiet away from the others. To understand how this group dynamic even formed, we have to travel back in time to their chaotic high school years. They were arguing about a potential double date, and who exactly was supposed to be invited. She thinks she has finally won the argument, assuming she has the perfect plan for their upcoming double date. Seung-min clearly loses his patience and starts shouting at him for even suggesting such a ridiculous idea. He refuses to back down, firing back with a defiant look as the argument gets even more intense. She smugly points out that there is no way he actually has a real person to bring along on their outing. The group stands in a tense silence, as neither side is willing to be the first to drop the subject. Seung-min shuts him down completely, reminding him that single guys have no business crashing a date meant for couples. He decides to settle the matter once and for all by reaching for his phone to show them some hard proof. She stares at the screen with a bored expression, fully expecting to see a fictional character from a video game. Her jaw practically hits the floor when she realizes he actually has a girlfriend who is incredibly gorgeous. They both stare at the screen in total disbelief, unable to deny that the girl in the photo is a literal 10. Now that he has seen the photo, the other guy is suddenly desperate to find out the name of this mysterious beauty. Han Ji Gottnip looks like an absolute dream in the picture, surrounded by flowers and looking like a total goddess. Over at the cinema, the pink-haired girl walks up to the group and introduces herself as Jeong Arin. Ji Gottnip and her date just stand there awkwardly, not quite sure how to handle Arin's sudden burst of energy. Arin puts on her brightest smile, acting like the perfect, innocent addition to the group outing. The group heads out to catch a movie, but Arin has a very specific plan to stay the center of attention. She plays the part of the sweet girl to perfection, making sure her date is completely focused on her. Ji Gottnip and our boy can already feel the awkward energy Arin is radiating. She keeps up the charm, ensuring she looks as adorable as possible before the drama begins. Our boy starts feeling the pressure as Ji Gottnip's mood clearly takes a turn for the worse. The second the movie starts, Arin begins wailing so loudly that the entire theater is forced to listen to her. She stays focused on the screen, waiting for the perfect moment to escalate her performance. She starts wiping away her tears with her fist, making a huge show of how sensitive she is. Ji Gottnip and the boy can only watch in total disbelief at the theatrical display happening right next to them. Ji Gottnip tries to brush off the ridiculous situation, waving her hands to distance herself from the drama. Arin uses her fake crying as an excuse to throw herself onto her date for some forced physical contact. The two of them look on with pure exhaustion, clearly done with her desperate need for sympathy. The minutes feel like hours as they wait for the movie, and this awkward date to finally end. Even after they leave the theater, she keeps the act going by looking down and pretending to be embarrassed. She looks straight at Arin, keeping her composure while everyone else is still feeling the tension. The whole group eventually ends up sitting together at a cafe, which is just as awkward as the theater. Arin and her date sit across from our duo, and the silence is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Arin looks super uncomfortable now, probably realizing how much she annoyed our girl earlier. Arin realizes her fake innocent act isn't working and starts to feel the pressure of being called out. She stays silent and avoids eye contact, knowing that her usual manipulation tactics won't work on someone who sees right through her. Ji Gottnip turned her gaze toward Jiang Arin, letting the silent tension fill the air between them. The atmosphere in the theater was suffocating, and everyone felt the weight of her intense stare. Xiumin started to get fidgety, pointing out that something was clearly making things very awkward for everyone. Ji Gottnip stood her ground, keeping her cool while the others seemed to be panicking under the pressure. She looked directly at her companion, her expression as unreadable as ever during this incredibly weird double date. Our girl just stared him down, leaving the guy sweating under the silent intensity of her gaze. Ji Gottnip didn't say a word. She just let her calm demeanor speak volumes about her current thoughts. She was focused and determined, seemingly unaffected by the drama swirling around the rest of the group. The two of them stood frozen in place, the heavy silence between them becoming almost too much to bear. The group eventually made their way out of the theater, though the suffocating atmosphere followed them into the hallway. Arin and Xiumin ended up sitting on a bench together, trying to recover from that heavy theater vibe. Arin put on her best innocent act, telling him that Ji Gottnip seemed like a genuinely nice person deep down. Xiumin completely lost his cool and started shouting at the top of his lungs to deny everything she just said. Xiumin desperately tried to smooth things over, but Arin just sat there with a blank stare that made him feel even more nervous. Inside her head, she was panicking because she realized her fake persona was starting to crumble and fail. Xiumin hears someone shouting his name, looking like he was at his absolute breaking point with all the tension. Ji Gottnip and her date casually walked by the bench where the others were sitting, ignoring the drama entirely. Arin quickly jumped up to greet them, trying to act like everything was perfectly normal and fun again. But then her heavy boots caught on the floor, and she started stumbling forward completely out of control. But right as she's about to face plant, someone reaches out and catches her in the nick of time. Arin is completely stunned to find herself in Ji Gottnip's arms, stuttering out her senior's name in total disbelief. She just stares up at her savior, totally frozen as she tries to process what just happened. Ji Gottnip looks back down at her with a calm expression, acting like saving her was the most natural thing in the world. Arin's face starts to heat up as she realizes just how close they are to each other right now. Her heart was absolutely racing, and for once, she wasn't even pretending to be flustered or embarrassed. The guys just stood back and watched the whole thing go down, not really knowing how to react. A disco ball started spinning overhead, signaling that the group had moved on to a nearby karaoke room. Ji Gottnip grabbed the microphone and started belting out a song with way more energy than anyone ever expected. The whole room was filled with light and sound as she finally let loose and had some fun. Xiumin looked like he was trying to apologize or wave off the awkwardness from earlier in the night. Ji Gottnip leans back and tries to catch her breath after that intense display of skill. She needs a moment to recover before she has to deal with any more of the drama following her surprising performance. Ji Gottnip sat back for a moment, looking a bit tired after her intense and surprising performance on the mic. She took a deep breath, her face showing a hint of the exhaustion from maintaining her usual composure. Our girl looked like she was deep in thought, processing everything that happened during this chaotic double date. Arin walked ahead, her movements appearing much more subdued than her usual bubbly and fake self. Ji Gottnip followed closely behind, her eyes trailing the girl who was trying so hard to be liked. They finally get up to leave the dark theater, but the heavy silence between them makes the room feel even more suffocating. Arin tried to strike up a conversation again, pulling out her phone to show something off to everyone. Ji Gottnip keeps her eyes on her, wondering just how long Arin can keep up this exhausting and fake performance. Ji Gottnip just watched her, observing the way Arin constantly adjusted her mask for the audience around them. Arin keeps walking like everything is perfectly normal, but Ji Gottnip has already mentally checked out of this conversation. She keeps her head down and checks her phone, trying to find any excuse to ignore the girl walking right beside her. The boys finally speak up to check on everyone, and both girls are quick to jump back into their roles and say they're doing just fine. She started thinking about all the different fake faces Aaron had made throughout the entire night. She finally makes it to the bathroom and stares at her reflection, needing a moment to wash away the frustration of the entire evening. She looks at her reflection and wonders if she's even capable of putting on a fake performance like that. She stared at herself, her face naturally stoic and devoid of those bubbly, fake expressions Aaron used. She wonders if a simple change in her expression is all she needs to finally fit in. Even with the forced grin, her eyes still looked tired and far from the joy she wanted. She heads back to her date, her mind still preoccupied with her encounter in the bathroom. Gottnip followed along, still stuck in her own head about everything that just went down with Aaron. After taking a moment to herself, she finally exits the restroom area to find him. He's still waiting right where she left him, and the two of them continue their walk through the quiet mall. He notices her silence and starts to wonder what exactly happened while she was away. Her date looked over at her, his expression soft as he watched our girl walk beside him. He stops and stares at her, completely confused by the bizarre face she's making. She realizes she's still caught up in her thoughts and tries her best to act natural. He keeps his eyes on her, sensing that something is definitely bothering her tonight. She looks up at him, feeling a little self-conscious now that he's paying so much attention to her. He continued to watch her, sensing that she might have been going through a lot mentally tonight. The two of them continue walking toward the exit, but the atmosphere between them has definitely started to feel a bit more tense. He steals a nervous glance at her as they walk, unable to hide the slight blush creeping onto his face. His eyes suddenly lock onto the logo on her shirt, and everything he knows about her starts to change in an instant. This unexpected discovery leaves him completely stunned, making him wonder if she's the person he's been searching for all along. New bangs look a little choppy, but the DIY haircut is finally finished. She catches her reflection in the glass, still unsure if she managed to pull off this daring and sudden transformation. Her best friend Jisoo leans in, asking if she thinks the guy actually noticed the change she made to her bangs. Jisoo reminds her that she is an aspiring hairdresser, so there was no way she was going to let her friend look bad. The two of them had quite the professional setup going on, using old newspapers and basic household scissors for the job. Jisoo went to work on those bangs right in the middle of school, treating the quiet hallway like a high-end salon. Our girl was absolutely dying of embarrassment, hiding her face behind her hands while her friend hacked away at her hair. Someone suddenly approaches and tells her to move, causing her to panic as she tries to hide her face. Jisoo peeks out from their hiding spot, looking completely busted as someone catches them in the middle of their secret session. Gottnip realizes she has to do her absolute best to hide the truth from everyone else she knows at school. She stops dead in her tracks, feeling like the weight of the entire world is resting on her new and uneven bangs. Han Gottnip is absolutely mortified and buries her face in her arms to hide from the world. She feels like the entire universe is judging her after that incredibly awkward encounter. Our boy just casually mentions that the weekend is finally here, looking totally oblivious to the massive breakdown she is having right in front of him. He has no idea that his light-hearted comments are only making her more self-conscious. He tries to get a better look at her, playfully poking at her side while she tries to stay hidden and small. She feels a cold sweat running down her face. As she prays, he doesn't notice the terrible hack job on her bangs. He looks at her with a confused expression, wondering why she is suddenly acting so incredibly shy and avoiding his gaze. He asks himself if this weird behavior is really just about her hair, or if something else is going on entirely. Her friend is genuinely shocked that the guy actually thinks a professional salon would do this to someone. She realizes he is completely clueless about the disaster that just took place. She thinks to herself that even though she hasn't known them long, this boy is seriously acting like a total dunderhead. But then she realizes that his denseness might actually be the best-case scenario for their little DIY haircut secret. The memory of that chaotic and stressful haircut keeps swirling through her head like a bad and confusing fever dream. Back on the school stairs, Jisoo was taking her time, making sure every single strand was perfectly in place before cutting. Our boy pointed to his own hair, maybe trying to relate to the struggle of keeping things looking neat and professional. Our girl shut that down immediately, telling him there is absolutely no way he understands the emotional weight of this haircut. Meanwhile, some guys over at the local PC room are just trying to enjoy their gaming session in peace and quiet. One of them starts to spill some interesting gossip, leaning in to make sure the others are actually paying attention. They seem pretty skeptical about the news, but the conversation is definitely starting to get a little heated between them. Back at the DIY stair salon, Jisoo is lining up the scissors for the final and most crucial cut of the day. She decides to take the scissors into her own hands to finish the job, but one nervous and impulsive snip is all it takes to completely ruin her bangs. Ji-got Nip stares wide-eyed at the result, her entire soul leaving her body as she processes what just happened to her fringe. Jisoo looks at her friend with a mix of pride and pure terror, hoping she didn't just ruin her social life forever. The boy just stands there watching the two of them, probably wondering why girls make everything so complicated and dramatic. Ji-got Nip quickly bundles up the hair-filled newspaper, trying to dispose of the evidence before anyone else sees it. She takes off running down the school hallway with everything she has. She is clutching that newspaper like it is a bomb about to go off at any second. She finally stops to catch her breath, checking over her shoulder to make sure no one is chasing her or watching. Jisoo catches up and promises that she can fix it and make it look as pretty as a professional salon would. They sit together on the stairs, two friends bonded by the most stressful and chaotic DIY project in school history. Ji-got Nip admits that the current state of her hair is definitely not great, and she is feeling the pressure. The boy tries to comfort her by showing off his own hair, claiming he tried to cut it himself too once. Jisoo stares at her friend with a skeptical expression, clearly not convinced that anything is actually fixed. Ji-got Nip takes one final look in the mirror and sees a girl who might actually be able to pull off this look. She is starting to feel a tiny bit of confidence returning to her face. She starts wondering if the guy might actually look better with longer hair after seeing how her own cut turned out. The two of them head out together, with her trying to act casual by flashing a peace sign as they walk. She runs into him later and realizes there is so much she wants to say, but she chooses to keep quiet for the sake of her own growth. It feels like a monkey is sitting at a typewriter, making all these chaotic life decisions for her as she navigates through the day. She wonders to herself if the guy actually preferred her previous long style, or if she is just overthinking things. Her friend tries her best to fix the jagged edges of her hair before anyone else in the school notices the disaster. She decides to take matters into her own hands and starts snipping away at her bangs, hoping for a miracle. She watches her hair fall onto the newspaper, praying that this reckless plan actually works out before her date. She stares at her new reflection with a blank expression, wondering if she just ruined her entire life right before meeting him. Her brain is basically a panicked monkey right now, desperately trying to process how her forehead ended up looking like this. She finally makes it to the theater, but she can't stop obsessing over her forehead while looking at the kiosk. Her date finally shows up and gives her a cheerful wave, having no idea about the hair crisis she just went through. They finally stand face to face, and she is terrified that her new look is going to be a total deal-breaker. She immediately starts apologizing for her appearance, begging him not to look too closely at her forehead. She feels like a weird bird with its feathers sticking out, while her date remains completely calm and unbothered. Despite all the hair drama, the two of them finally pull themselves together and prepare to head out. They decide to leave the stress behind and focus on having a good time at the movies. Stay tuned for more updates, and make sure to read the full series on Diva Scans for the complete experience. Her room is a total disaster zone after the absolute crisis she went through just trying to find an outfit that worked. They continue walking down the street, the night air cooling down as they head toward the subway station together. G. Gottnip meets up with her friend in a quiet corner of the school to discuss their secret plan, while they think no one is watching. Her friend looks on in total disbelief, shocked by the bold suggestion G. Gottnip just made. G. Gottnip maintains her composure and keeps her eyes fixed forward, determined to see this through to the end. Her friend continues to study her expression, trying to figure out if she's actually serious about taking such a big risk. Dark clouds rolled in over the school building as the sound of thunder echoed through the heavy air. The rain started coming down hard on Hill Road, turning the quiet afternoon into a total washout. Our girl G. Gottnip and this guy were huddled together under a floral umbrella, trying to stay dry. He starts blushing like crazy because he realizes just how close he is to G. Gottnip under that tiny umbrella. The awkwardness is real as he tries to keep his cool while they wait for the rain to let up. The storm doesn't show any signs of slowing down, as the heavy downpour turns the streets into a total mess. They navigated the sidewalk together, with G. Gottnip keeping her cool while the guy seemed lost in thought. Bro was clearly feeling the pressure of being so close to her, looking totally flustered and confused. He's completely thrown off guard and can't believe what's happening right now. His brain is basically short-circuiting as he tries to make sense of her sudden kindness. He stole a quick glance her way, his eyes wide as he tried to process this whole situation. The silence between them felt heavy, with only the steady rhythm of the rain filling the space. G. Gottnip stays completely cool and collected as they walk, looking absolutely radiant even in the middle of a gloomy storm. Walking together like this under the floral umbrella, they could easily pass for a real couple. As they kept moving down the street, he finally piped up to ask her what was actually wrong. By the time they reached the apartment complex, the heavy rain has turned the entire city into a gray blur. When they reached the entrance of the building, he stepped back and offered to let her take the umbrella. He was being a total gentleman, even though it meant he would probably get soaked on his way back home. He turned around and started heading back out into the storm, looking a bit lonely without her beside him. He takes one last look back at G. Gottnip before finally heading home through the storm. He kept his head down, focusing on the road as he moved through the puddles with a serious expression. G. Gottnip gave him a small, friendly wave as he left, her expression softening just a tiny bit as she watched him go. It was a quiet moment, but you could tell there was a lot more going on beneath the surface. The downpour only gets heavier, flooding the sidewalks as the storm rages on. The heavy rain turns the entire neighborhood into a gloomy, gray ghost town. Our boy finally made it inside and shut the door, probably feeling relieved to be out of the wet clothes. His dad was right there waiting, and immediately demanded to know where the heck he had been going. His father doesn't look too happy to see him, waiting with a tired and suspicious expression. He looked back at his dad with a startled expression, clearly not prepared to give a full explanation. Dad stared at him with a mix of suspicion and exhaustion, especially when his eyes landed on that floral umbrella. It was definitely an awkward homecoming, and he had some serious explaining to do about where he got such a flashy accessory. Meanwhile, another guy with glasses was standing outside in the pouring rain, looking totally miserable and soaked through. He waits miserably by the curb, feeling completely exhausted by the endless rain. A car pulled up and someone shouted that they were there to pick him up and that they brought an umbrella too. The driver waved him over, telling him to just wait right there while they got ready to help him out. His mood immediately shifts as he realizes he won't have to walk home in this mess after all. Suddenly, that same floral umbrella popped open with a loud snap, its bright colors cutting through the rain. Two grown men were now sharing the small, flowery umbrella, looking incredibly out of place, but staying dry. Fast forward a bit, and now we've got two grown men squeezed under this dainty floral umbrella, trying their best to stay dry. One of them actually thanks the other for the save, even though they look absolutely ridiculous in the middle of a downpour. The storm showed no signs of letting up, as night began to fall over the apartment complex. The rain shows no signs of letting up, pouring down through the dim light as the night gets even gloomier. Later on, a text from Arin popped up on his phone asking if he was in, and saying she was bored. She followed up by asking if she could just come over and hang out at his place, since nobody was home. Rewinding back to the school entrance, the rain was coming down so hard that everyone was stuck under the roof. Students were scrambling to find cover, and it looked like nobody was going to be getting home anytime soon without a serious plan. Back at the school, the rain is pouring down so hard that he decides he needs to run back inside to grab something. He tells G. Gottnip to wait while he rushes back into the building for a moment. But as he turned to leave, she suddenly reached out and grabbed his backpack with a firm grip. He stands there completely frozen, staring back in total silence while he tries to process her sudden invitation. She doesn't even blink as she drops the most insane line ever, admitting she wants to share the umbrella because she thinks it'll make her heart race. She didn't give him a chance to argue, opening up that bright floral umbrella right there in the rain. He's totally baffled by her choice of gear and asks her what's up with the loud design, but she just wants to know if he thinks it looks pretty. He looked closer at the pattern and admitted that the colors and the way the flowers were arranged actually looked beautiful. G. Gottnip gave him a little smirk and told him that he actually had a pretty good eye for things. That compliment hit him like a ton of bricks, and he jumped a little in surprise at her sudden praise. His entire face turned beet red as he looked away, his heart probably pounding harder than he wanted to admit. They started their walk, huddled close together to make sure they both stayed under the small floral cover. He matches her pace perfectly as they walk together through the heavy downpour. He kept stealing glances at her, his expression a mix of nervousness and total disbelief at what she had said. To anyone watching them pass by, they look exactly like a real couple out on a romantic date. He is so incredibly tense that he has completely forgotten how to act like a normal human being. They walked past the school fence, the heavy downpour creating a curtain of water all around them. G. Gottnip noticed him acting all weird and asked him what was actually wrong with him today. He tries his best to look forward and act natural, but his nerves are clearly getting the better of him. He flinched when she shifted her position, clearly overthinking every single move they were making. She leaned in a bit closer and asked if he really didn't feel anything, or if she was wrong about the heart racing. He blurted out a quick no while looking away, his face turning an even deeper shade of red than before. She flat out told him he was being super weird today, but he just insisted that he was totally fine. G. Gottnip gave him a long, skeptical look, her eyes narrowing as she tried to see through his obvious lie. Their shoes kept clicking against the wet pavement, moving further away from the school and toward his house. He was staring off into the distance, his eyes wide and vacant as he tried to survive this awkward walk. He caught himself glancing at the other people passing by, envying how they could just go about their day without this crushing weight of embarrassment. Every second they spent standing there felt like an eternity, and the sound of the rain was the only thing filling the heavy silence between them. He looked over at the sign, probably wishing he could just hide in there until the awkwardness passed. The blush on his cheeks wasn't going away, and he looked like he was about to melt into a puddle himself. The floral umbrella was the only bright spot on the dreary street, shielding them as they remained trapped in their own little bubble. Our boy was a total nervous wreck, his face flushed and his brow furrowed as he tried to deal with his racing heart. G. Gottnip had definitely succeeded in her plan, leaving him completely flustered by her bold and sudden honesty. The rain continues to pour over the quiet apartment complex, setting a gloomy mood for the night. Even the streetlights seem to struggle against the heavy downpour, as the clouds hang low over the city. Our boy checks his phone to find Arin asking if he made it back home safely after their awkward goodbye. Arin doesn't waste any more time and asks him directly if she can come over to his house right now. Arin makes herself right at home and faceplants onto the mattress with a satisfied groan. He walks into the room to find his mom praising Arin like a child, just because she finished brushing her teeth. He looks over to see his mom and Arin already getting comfortable and sharing the same bed together. Mom is absolutely loving the company, treating Arin like a precious little kitten as they cuddle up tight. Our boy just stares blankly at the ceiling, wondering how his guest and his mom became so close. This reminds his dad of a very different, much more stressful encounter he had earlier in the day. He was out at a street stall with a nervous rider, trying to have a serious talk despite the rain. The rider started getting incredibly emotional, his face turning bright red as the drink started hitting him hard. He began weeping openly, calling himself a complete nobody and apologizing for even existing near the older man. Suddenly, the guy slams his hands on the table and bows so hard it looks like he might break it. He screams at the top of his lungs about never forgetting the kindness of being raised up by him. Dad is completely horrified by the spectacle, especially with the restaurant staff watching them with judging eyes. The rider does not care who sees him, as he keeps his head pinned to the table in total submission. He is practically flat against the surface now, completely overwhelmed by his own dramatic outburst of gratitude. They eventually settle down to discuss a story involving the epic struggle between the heavenly and demon realms. Back in the present, the kitchen is dark and silent as everyone else in the house has fallen asleep. The quiet is broken by the sound of light footsteps padding across the floor in the middle of the night. He stays as still as possible while the mystery guest approaches his bedroom door. His heart starts pounding against his chest as he prepares himself for whatever is lurking in the hallway. He opens the door to find Aaron standing right there, looking just as surprised to see him awake. Looking back, everything started with that simple text message asking if she could come over to his place. He had told her he would need to ask his mom for permission first, thinking she might say no. But his mom was actually thrilled by the idea and could not hide her sheer joy at the news. The second Aaron walked through the door, Mom practically tackled her with a giant, welcoming hug. Our boy can only stand there in disbelief, as his mom completely fangirls over her new favorite person. She is beaming with pride, acting like she just won the lottery because her son brought a girl home. Mom starts making all sorts of gestures, already planning out exactly how they are going to spend the night. He tries to protest and tell her she is overreacting, but she is not interested in his opinion at all. She asks him what his problem is and why he is making such a fuss over a simple guest. The two of them just stare him down with total unity until he realizes he has already lost this battle. Mom pulls Aaron back into a cuddle, acting like she is a cute little pet she just adopted. She is absolutely loving the royal treatment and can't help but let out a satisfied grin now that she's officially the star of the show. She knows exactly how to play her cards and realizes she has already got the entire household wrapped around her finger. A quick wardrobe change later, and she is ready to debut a brand new look that is guaranteed to turn heads. She steps out looking like a total fashion icon, proving she can pull off the cute style with zero effort. She keeps gushing about the pink skirt, telling our girl that she is absolutely the prettiest person alive. Our boy is just standing there scratching his head, confused by how fast the house turned into a runway. She finds herself genuinely moved by all the sweet compliments and starts to feel a real bond forming with the family. Mom is in a state of pure bliss, practically floating on clouds as she admires her daughter-in-law potential. Suddenly, our boy gets a weird chill down his spine, like he is being left out of a secret plan. The bond between the two women is growing stronger by the minute, and he feels like a total outsider. He remembers the very first time he ever introduced Jeong Arin to his family, when they were just kids. Mom is suddenly hit with a shocking realization that makes her scream out in total disbelief. They decide that all this excitement has made them hungry, and they start craving a late-night snack. Mom wastes no time ordering our boy into the kitchen to prepare some food for her and G. Gottnip. He gets to work boiling the water and making sure the noodles are cooked just the way they like. He brings the steaming pot to the table and sarcastically asks the princesses to enjoy their humble meal. He quickly plays it off as a joke, even though he's clearly reached his limit with all the family drama. They dive into the food immediately, and the bowl is empty before he can even blink twice. Once they are full, he tells G. Gottnip she needs to brush her teeth and get some sleep finally. He points her toward the supplies and tells her to just use whatever is in the usual spot. G. Gottnip flops down onto the sofa and hides her face, feeling the total exhaustion of the long day finally hit. With the long and chaotic day finally coming to an end, the house falls into a deep silence so everyone can get some rest. And G. Gottnip creeps into the room while everything is still pitch black. Our boy is lying in bed with his eyes wide open, feeling his heart hammer against his ribs. She stands there in the doorway, looking a bit hesitant but mostly exhausted from the day. Outside, the rain is still coming down in sheets, making the night feel even more secluded. G. Gottnip slides under the covers and whispers an apology while her heart starts racing. Our boy can hardly believe she is actually lying right next to him like this. Our boy is completely frozen, wondering if he is dreaming or if this is really happening. They are inches apart, and he can feel the heat radiating from her face. She reaches out a hand, and the tension in the air is thick enough to cut. They just stare at each other, both of them caught in this weird, heart-pounding limbo. She suddenly mentions how she hopes they don't become corrupted, which is the last thing he expected to hear. She stares at him intensely, and he has no idea what could possibly be going through her head. He tries to swallow the lump in his throat as the realization of her being right there hits him. He remains paralyzed in the dark, sweating bullets as he tries to process this insane situation. He remembers making this ridiculous cat-shaped pancake just to see her smile. It was a complete mess, but it was one of those moments that stuck with him. Back in the present, he is still sweating bullets while she remains perfectly still. He looks like he is about to have a heart attack from the sheer proximity. Just when the mood is peaking, the bedroom door suddenly creaks open. Meanwhile, the story shifts gears as we head over to a different household where a new set of problems is about to unfold. A quiet apartment complex, just as the sun begins to set on what was supposed to be a normal evening. He walks into the room and stops dead in his tracks, completely floored to see her standing there unexpectedly. She looks just as startled to see him, her eyes going wide as the panic starts to set in. He immediately loses his cool and starts shouting, demanding an explanation for why she showed up out of nowhere. The shouting brings his mom running into the hallway to see what all the commotion is about. He stands there with a look of pure disbelief, his brain short-circuiting as he tries to process the situation. He keeps yelling at the top of his lungs, his face turning red from the sheer frustration of it all. Mom isn't having any of his attitude and shoots him a look of pure annoyance, telling him to pipe down. She starts scolding him for making such a massive scene, while she tries to handle the situation at the door. They eventually find the dad slumped over on the living room floor, looking absolutely hammered and barely able to sit up. She can only stare at him in total exasperation, wondering how he managed to get himself into such a drunken mess. She's completely stunned that her mom is actually kicking her dad out of the room right now. G. Gottnip wastes no time helping her mom shove her dad out the door, so they can finally have some privacy. The three of them stand there in awkward silence, waiting for the noise in the hallway to die down. She quickly scurries back toward the bed, trying to act like that didn't just happen. The rain outside is the only thing filling the silence now. She sits back down on the edge of the mattress, looking totally drained. He watches her, not knowing whether to laugh or apologize for the chaos. She hides under the covers and wishes the floor would just swallow her up after that mortifying moment. She suddenly scurries over to the other side of the bed to put some distance between them. She reaches out and grips the edge of the mattress as she tries to settle her racing heart. He teases her by asking if she wants a hug too, but she quickly tells him that's not what she's looking for. Her expression suddenly turns serious as she prepares to talk about the things that have been weighing on her mind. She stretches her arms out wide, finally admitting that she actually does want him to hold her. She asks him if he ever gets scared that things are going to change between them. The question catches him off guard, making him really think about their future. He doesn't say a word, just watching her as she processes everything. The two of them lean in so close that they accidentally bump their foreheads together. He immediately recoils in shock, clutching his head from the sudden impact. She looks up at him with a dazed expression, completely caught off guard by the clumsy moment. She reaches out and grips the bedsheets as she tries to steady her racing heart. He falls back onto the pillow, staring up at the ceiling while trying to process the tension between them. They are face to face again, and his heart starts that frantic drumming again. Ji Gottnip looks back at him, her face glowing in the dim light of the room. She locks eyes with him, her expression softening as she waits for him to say what's on his mind. He reaches out to hold her shoulders, keeping her close as the storm rages on outside the window. Outside in the garden, a lone frog braves the pouring rain while perched on a large leaf. The heavy rain continues to drum against the house, making the room feel like a private sanctuary for the two of them. He can feel her breath on his face, and his brain is basically short-circuiting. He finally finds his voice and asks her if she is actually afraid of things changing between them. The rain keeps drumming against the window pane, a constant rhythm to their silence. His heart is thumping so loud, he is sure she can hear it through the mattress. She pulls the blanket up and tries to hide herself, feeling the heat rise to her cheeks. She is completely flushed, her heart racing as she stares back at him from under the covers. She tells him they should just go to sleep, desperately trying to break the heavy tension in the room. They both settle in for the night, but the air between them is still thick with unspoken feelings. As they lay side by side under the covers, their hearts start thumping so loud it is almost deafening. He stares off into the distance, his face turning a deep shade of crimson as he tries to stay calm. He can feel the warmth radiating from his own skin while he lies there completely frozen. His heart skips a beat as he realizes just how close she actually is to him right now. Ji Gottnip is just as flustered, her own heart pounding against her ribs as she tries to act natural. In a moment of pure instinct, he reaches out and gently places his hand on her arm. Outside, the rain just keeps falling, completely unbothered by their awkwardness. Ji Gottnip tried to relax before her shift started, but she couldn't stop replaying that heated moment with him. Even the peaceful morning atmosphere wasn't enough to distract her from how close they had actually been just a few hours ago. She took a long sip of her coffee, desperately trying to cool down her racing heart and find some focus. She knew she had to get it together before work started, but her brain was stuck on a loop of that awkward tension. Ji Gottnip and her coworker stood behind the counter waiting for the next customer to walk through the door. The silence between them was a bit heavy, but she was grateful for the distraction of the job. The arrival of a customer forced Ji Gottnip to snap out of it, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to get a lot more complicated. She knew everything was changing and wasn't sure if she was ready for what came next. Her thoughts drifted back to earlier that day when she was sitting at home with her sister. They were both exhausted from the constant family drama that seemed to follow them everywhere they went. Ji Gottnip could tell by the serious look on her sister's face that they were finally going to talk about the one person they usually avoided. The atmosphere in the living room was tense as they prepared to dig into the past. She pointed out that Nam Do-yoon was all over their old school records from elementary to middle school. It was like they couldn't escape his name, no matter how many years had passed since then. It turns out Do-yoon wasn't just a classmate. He was actually in their childhood family photos, too. Her sister couldn't understand how he had been such a permanent fixture in their lives without them even realizing it. Her sister stared at the evidence in disbelief, realizing that their connection to him went way deeper than just being old classmates. It was a shocking reminder that he had been part of their family history all along. The weight of the secret finally became too much to bear, and she couldn't help but let out a cry of frustration. Seeing those photos made it impossible to keep pretending that everything was normal. Their emotional breakdown was cut short when their father suddenly appeared with a stern look that immediately silenced the room. He had a way of making everyone go quiet just by standing there with that disapproving expression. He sat down and immediately demanded to know what all the noise was about. The air in the room turned cold as they both realized they were in for a massive lecture that neither of them wanted to hear. Her sister looked away, terrified of saying the wrong thing and setting him off. They both knew that being honest about the photos would only turn the house into a complete battlefield. Ji Gottnip looked at her sister, then back at her dad, trying to figure out how to navigate this mess. She hated the way the house felt like a battlefield every time their father was around. Their father wasn't satisfied with the silence and looked like he was about to lose his cool at any second. He stared them down with an intensity that made it clear he wasn't going to let this go until he got the truth. Her sister tries to stand her ground and reason with their father, but the man is clearly not in the mood to listen. G. Gottnip sits between them in tense silence, feeling the suffocating weight of her family's constant fighting. She finally reaches her breaking point and stands up, needing to get away before the situation gets even worse. She heads into the kitchen and lets the cold water run over an apple, trying to drown out the noise of the argument. Peeling the fruit becomes her way of focusing her frustration into something her own hands can control. G. Gottnip brought the sliced apples back out to the table and set them down without saying a word. She was trying to be the bigger person, but the tension in the room was almost suffocating. She looks at her father one last time and decides she is officially done dealing with the drama for the day. She announces she is heading out for her shift at the cafe, not even waiting for her father to acknowledge her. She gives him a final, weary look, realizing that he is likely never going to change his stubborn ways. Before stepping out the door, she takes a moment to look back at her sister, who is still stuck in the middle of the mess. Somewhere else, a phone sitting on a desk starts buzzing nonstop as a massive wave of new notifications begins to pour in. Over at a local PC room, Doyoon and his friend are caught completely off guard when they see the alerts lighting up the screen. Doyoon stops playing and stares at his phone in total disbelief as he processes the scandalous rumor spreading about him. His friend catches a glimpse of the message and nearly falls out of his chair from the sheer shock of what he is seeing. He starts yelling at the top of his lungs, unable to believe the rumors about Doyoon and the girl being together are actually true. He gets a frantic message from his friend, begging him to hurry up and save her from a total nightmare. Back at the cafe, G. Gottnip is stuck dealing with her blonde coworker, who is already being his usual over-the-top self. He tries to lay on the charm with a sparkling smile, clearly fishing for some praise that he is definitely not going to get. She just stares back with a completely deadpan expression, wondering when he is actually going to stop acting like a clown and start working. She really does not have the energy for his games today, especially after the morning she has had. He notices her cold attitude and starts getting defensive about why she is being so mean to him. He looks at her with total disbelief, unable to understand why his charms are having zero effect on her. She bluntly asks him why he is even still talking to her instead of cleaning the tables. Suddenly, a massive bug scurries across the floor and the coworker loses his mind, scrambling onto a counter while G. Gottnip prepares to end the thing's life. He watches in total awe as she handles the beast without showing a single ounce of fear. She finally finishes her shift and grabs her bag to leave, but he reaches out and begs her not to go. He practically collapses against the counter, acting like his entire world is crumbling because he has to finish the shift alone. She tells him to grow up and start acting like an actual 24-year-old instead of a toddler. Her sister is already sitting at a table nearby, watching the whole awkward scene unfold with a look of pure exhaustion. They both freeze when they realize her sister has been sitting there the entire time witnessing their drama. Her sister admitted that she really didn't want to go back home and deal with their dad's temper again. She asked G. Gottnip to talk to him about increasing her part-time hours so she could stay away longer. She looked at G. Gottnip with pleading eyes, hoping that her sister would be able to help her escape the house for a bit. It was a lot to ask, but she was desperate for any kind of break from the tension. G. Gottnip asks her coworker to talk to his father about increasing her weekend hours so she can spend as much time away from home as possible. Seeking a distraction from her family drama, her sister heads over to a friend's place to clear her head. When she arrives, she is immediately stunned by the massive collection of books filling his room from floor to ceiling. She asks him if he's actually read all of these books, clearly impressed by his dedication to his hobby. As they talk, her attention is suddenly drawn to a small stack of Polaroid photos sitting on the edge of the desk. She picks up the photos and is completely caught off guard when she recognizes the people in the pictures. She realizes these aren't just random photos, but a record of a past connection she never knew about. She looks back at him with a suspicious glare, wondering why he's been keeping these memories a secret from her. He starts to break a sweat, realizing he's been caught and that he has some serious explaining to do. Later that evening, her sister asks G. Gottnip if that one old photo was really worth all the chaos it's caused. She finally loses her cool and starts shouting about how she's always the one being treated like a nuisance by the family. She continues to vent her frustration, feeling like she's being unfairly blamed for every little thing that goes wrong. She didn't say anything at first because she was still trying to process the fact that their paths had crossed so long ago. Everything they were dealing with now started with those moments captured on film. G. Gottnip watches as the girl across from her breaks down, clearly overwhelmed by the weight of everything they just discussed. As they sit together in the quiet room, she listens to the rest of the story, realizing that their family histories are even more complicated than she first thought. Even though their families are a total wreck, G. Gottnip realizes she doesn't actually have any ill will toward the girl. She understands they are both just stuck in a messy situation that is completely out of their control. She kept walking, her silhouette fading into the distance as she headed toward whatever future was waiting for her. The journey was just beginning, and she knew that the hardest part was still yet to come. Guys are just chilling at the PC bang when one of them gets a text that completely derails their gaming session. Our guy nearly falls out of his chair when he finds out they are actually a thing now. He can't believe the news and screams out in total disbelief. He explains that the poor girl is in serious trouble and tells him he needs to go save her right now. They both stare at their computer screens, but their minds are clearly racing with everything they just heard. G. Gottnip is standing in her room alone, looking completely drained after that heavy conversation about her family past. She stands there in the middle of the room, letting the weight of the secrets finally settle over her shoulders. Our girl just hits her breaking point and collapses right onto the floor out of sheer physical and emotional exhaustion. She is just lying there like a starfish, staring blankly at the ceiling with absolutely zero energy left to move. Suddenly, the door slides open, and someone walks into the apartment looking for her in the quiet room. It's our boy, and he stops dead in his tracks when he sees her just sprawled out on the floor. He looks down at her and asks why on earth she is lying there like that, looking totally concerned. G. Gottnip sits up slightly and just tells him that the other girl just left after they finished talking things out. She finally breaks down and pulls him into a desperate hug, needing to feel his warmth after everything she just endured. She gets even bolder and crawls right onto his lap, wanting to get as close to him as she possibly can. The sudden force of her embrace catches him off guard, and they both end up tumbling back onto the floor in a tangled heap. He tries his best to reassure her, but his heart is racing so fast that he's worried she'll hear it. He gently strokes her head, trying to provide some comfort while they share this intimate moment. He runs his fingers through her hair, finding himself completely mesmerized by the soft texture. He starts overthinking everything, wondering if he should keep talking or if silence is actually what she needs right now. She tells him that she actually prefers the silence, finding a sense of peace in just being close to him. The physical tension finally becomes too much, and they both end up tumbling onto the floor in a tangled mess. Even after the fall, she refuses to let go, keeping him pinned down as they both try to process the awkward situation. She looks up at him with a gaze that makes it clear she's not ready for this moment to end just yet. They stay there on the hardwood floor for a long time, completely lost in each other's presence. He looks around the empty room, realizing that for the first time, he doesn't want to be anywhere else but right here with her. Meanwhile, over at the cafe, the blonde brother is busy working behind the counter when he notices someone unexpected walk in. His heart sinks the moment he recognizes the older man, who looks like he's there to settle a serious score. The air in the shop turns ice cold as the two of them square off, neither one willing to back down. The man looks absolutely displeased, making it very obvious that this isn't just a friendly social visit. The older man demands an explanation, with a look so stern it could pierce right through the poor guy. The boys head over to meet G. Gottnip, but our guy is clearly sweating bullets as he thinks about the upcoming confrontation. She sends them a text demanding they meet her immediately at the cafe where she works, and she isn't taking no for an answer. When they finally sit down together, the atmosphere is incredibly awkward as they wait for someone to speak first. G. Gottnip looks them right in the eye, ready to drop a truth bomb that she has been holding in for far too long. The brother brings over their drinks, trying to act professional despite the massive amount of tension at the table. He flashes a fake smile and tells his coworker to get lost so they can have some privacy for this heavy conversation. Our main guy is completely put off by how icy the brother is acting toward them right now. The friend looks like he is about to have a panic attack, knowing that whatever she says next is going to change everything. G. Gottnip looks down as she struggles to find the right words to explain the painful reality of the situation. She finally begins to speak, and the weight of her words makes the entire room feel smaller. She shuts down their assumptions immediately, telling them that the truth is way more complicated than they could ever imagine. The friend just stares at the table in silence, his brain struggling to process the bombshell she just dropped on them. The guys can only sit there in total shock as they realize their entire world has just been turned upside down. From the outside, it looks like a normal afternoon at a cafe, but inside, a major revelation is tearing their lives apart. She looks him dead in the eye, waiting to see if he actually understands the mess they have all stumbled into. The guys watch her go, feeling a mix of concern and respect for how she handled the situation. Our boy tells his friend that what she did was actually pretty cool, despite how messy it all is. As the conversation continues at the cafe, the two boys reflect on the heavy atmosphere she left behind. Our boy can't help but feel like he should have done more to support her during that confrontation. He eventually admits that her directness was actually quite impressive, despite the chaos. The scene then shifts back to the apartment, where a new family drama is about to unfold. G. Gottnip is caught completely off guard when her sister suddenly appears at the doorway calling out to her. The redhead sister wastes no time and immediately demands to know exactly where their father is. She looks incredibly distressed as she waits for an answer she might not be ready to hear. G. Gottnip remains cautious and asks why she is suddenly so interested in their father after all this time. In a sudden burst of emotion, the sister rushes forward and grabs G. Gottnip's hands tightly. They stand there in a tense silence as the gap between the two sisters finally begins to close. G. Gottnip is left speechless, unable to find the right words to respond to her sister's vulnerability. The sister offers her full support, telling G. Gottnip to reach out whenever things get too difficult to handle alone.